Okay, I know it's been a tumultuous season of graphics card shortages and just rumors that we have no substantiation for, and trying to figure out when are the next round of graphics cards coming. And hopefully today's information will shed some more light and give us some more information on what the next generation of NVIDIA GPUs is supposed to be. This is probably one of the best sources we've had so far, as opposed to like industry people or like just our feelings on what the next thing's supposed to be. So here today, our source is from Tech Power Up. This is their GPU database submission for the NVIDIA GTX 1180. Now we got some juicy specs in here, so I want you all to hold your salivation until the end of the video, but don't also forget to subscribe to UFD Tech. Click the little notification bell so you stay up to date on all of our tech-related content. Quick little plug before we actually dive into it. So, we've already talked about the GTX 1180 for quite a bit of time. We've been speculating whether or not we're getting Ampere or Turing, or is this going to be Volta. We've had no idea. This hopefully sheds some more light on it. We'll see. But the things that we've always known about the upcoming series of graphics cards happen to be absolutely confirmed. One is the fact that it's going to be using GDDR6, and two is the fact that it's going to be better than GTX 1080. That's what we found out. Great, good news, everybody. So obviously we can still take this with a pinch of salt because this is unreleased product. Things may change. This could just be an engineering sample that they have submitted to the database as far as like clock speeds and all of that good stuff. But let's take a look at the specs. So the graphics processor is based on the GV104, which is the architecture of Volta, and it's a 12 nanometer die process. The interesting thing about this is that we've been talking about potentially getting Turing or Ampere. However, it looks like the information that was submitted to Tech Power Up is that it is indeed a Volta card. Now, it could be that the way that the card interfaces with the system, the device ID actually indicates that it's Volta, even though it is Turing, because Turing is just going to be a more refined version of Volta. We're not exactly sure at this point, but we can say that whatever card we're getting, it is based on Volta in one way, shape, or form. If they want to call it Turing, they want to call it Ampere, if they want to call it whatever they want to call it, Pascal Boogaloo number 2, totally fine with me. But moving on, so we have all of that information. The release date unknown, production status, nobody knows. PCI Express 3.0. Fantastic. Okay, clock speeds. This is where we get into some interesting information. The GPU clock is 1405 and the boost clock is 1582. Now, if you compare that to a 1080 Ti, this is basically only 50 to 100 megahertz off of the official specs in Tech Power Up's database. Obviously, we have graphics cards that go much higher than that on the AIB partner cards. Absolutely could happen here with the 1180. This is just what it's submitted to the database as like what the minimum base and boost clocks would be here. And then we also have a memory clock of 1500 megahertz with the DDR5, with the double data rate and all of that good stuff, gives us a 12 gigahertz effective clock speed, which is quite a bit higher than on a 1080 Ti by about a gigahertz or so, which is fantastic for the memory, which, as we mentioned, is 16 gigabytes of GDDR6 coming out on a 256-bit bus and has 384 gigabytes per second of memory bandwidth. Now, this is about 80% of what we have on the 1080 Ti, but it's significantly more than what we have on the GTX 1080. Now, let's look at the GPU processing core. So we have the memory out of the way. We have 3,584 CUDA cores. This is the exact same as the 1080 Ti, has 224 TMUs, 64 ROPS, which is less than the GTX 1080 Ti, more than the 1080. The pixel rate is 102 gigapixels per second, which is substantially less than the 1080 Ti, but both the texture rate and the floating point performance, or the teraflops performance, are the exact same as the 1080 Ti. So texture rate is 354.4 gigatexels per second, and then we have 11.34 teraflops of floating point performance, which is, this is just, again, at stock. This is not the overclock, because obviously you can get it much higher once you overclock your GPU. There's still some more interesting information. It's a dual slot card, pretty obvious, exact same size. It looks to be, might even be the same reference cooler. 200 watt TDP, which is pretty good compared to the 1080 Ti. It's about 20% less power consumption than the 1080 Ti, which means that this is 20% more powerful. No, it doesn't work like that. Math doesn't work like that, Brett. Scratch that thought from your head. Anyways, it looks like we're gonna get 3 display ports, 1 HDMI port. They're not gonna drop the HDMI so that they could just have all of that airflow going through. Who knows, maybe they will. We also have 1 6-pin and 1 8-pin power connector for that 200 watt TDP. Now that we have the specs out of the way, let's discuss the implications of this. So it looks like this card is basically going to be a 1080 Ti. That's the honest truth of the matter. I don't expect that it's going to outperform it by more than 5 to 10% based on IPC improvements, because if we look at the CUDA cores and we look at the clock speeds, if you put one of them right next to each other, you could say, I don't know which card's the difference, but hopefully with the 12 nanometer refined Volta architecture, we could see that there's better IPC in performance, which is instruction per clock, which means that for each megahertz that, a 1180 processes, it does a slightly better than a 1080 single megahertz process. That's the general idea there. So hopefully seeing a 5 to 10% bump there could be pretty great as far as what a GTX 1180 would be. Now, I know a lot of people, especially in my previous video on the 1180, were talking about how they're super disappointed because it's basically a 1080 Ti. It's nothing special. It's nothing greater than that. And I think to some extent, like, are people misremembering Pascal? Because the 1080 wasn't that much better than a 1080 Ti. It was good, but it wasn't that much better. Obviously, this is less of a performance bump. I'm not saying that this is the exact same, but the 1080 wasn't phenomenally better than a 980 Ti. I mean, the big thing that NVIDIA was touting when they unveiled the 1080 was that it's basically 980s and SLI, which we found was like kind of true, but not really, not exactly. It's actually a little worse. Like the 1080 isn't as good as people are remembering it to be. Like the 980 Ti can still hold its own with, like, it beats the 1170 in a lot of instances. Ugh, there's gonna be so many people in the comments being like, Brett, what about this benchmark? The 1070 beats the crap out of it. What do you, shut up, stop saying the 980 Ti is better. Anyways, no, I get it. I get where you're coming from. That's not the point. The point is, the 1180 appears to be a significant improvement over the 1080, as is the 1080 Ti over the 1080. However, the thing that we really have to consider here is the fact of what is it going to come in priced at, and that is looking to be the exact same price as the 1080 Ti. We're basically just going to shift to a new architecture, not get a performance bump for the exact same price. Because if you remember, with the GTX 1080, it launched at a $699 MSRP. And yes, that one person in the comments who was like, Brett, why do you keep saying that? It was a $599 MSRP. That was for AIB partner cards, that $599 price tag. The Founders Edition price was always $699. So technically, 1080 launched at $700 if you wanted the Founders Edition, which I'm comparing Founders Edition to Founders Edition, because even though the MSRP of the 1080 on the AIB partner side was $599, we saw it going for more expensive than the Founders Edition, which was the whole confusion to begin with. Was like, why is it more expensive? Like, are you binning the chips? And NVIDIA was like, no, we're not binning the chips. They clearly were, the chips were better, but they were like, no, we're not binning the chips. It's just what you get if you want to buy from NVIDIA directly. But then they ended up pricing things the same later on, and then also, like with the 1070 Ti, we ended up getting, like, they couldn't even overclock on the AIB partner cards. Stupid move, NVIDIA. I would highly suspect that if they did it with the 1070 Ti, unless the outrage was good enough like it was with the GPP, which I don't think it is because we kind of all forgot, that we're still going to get AIB part, like a Strix is going to be the same clock as a Founders Edition, which is going to be the same clock as an MSI Armor, which I think is stupid and broken. Hopefully they don't do it, but they potentially will. But the general idea is that this is going to be better than a 1080 by a pretty good margin, and enough to make it a worthwhile price increase over the 1080. Is this going to be a better purchase than the 1080 Ti? Possibly not. But one of the things that could be contributing to the fact that we haven't seen 1080 Ti prices come down on the mainstream market is because NVIDIA stopped production of them a little bit ago. There are some rumors floating around that NVIDIA stopped production on the GP102 chips, which is the 1080 Ti. And so if they've done that, that means that the price on the open market has gone up significantly. And then if we get an introduction of this GV104, this 1180 onto the market, and they're actually producing fresh chips in large batches, we could see MSRP be an actual reality. However, the difficulty there is that NVIDIA has claimed that we should see a price increase because of GDDR6. It's going to be more expensive, but then we don't know about the whole lawsuit issue with RAM manufacturers and whether or not that's going to drive the price down. There's a whole lot of factors that we really need to consider here when it comes to the GTX 1180, but Tech Power Up, thankfully, has given us some pretty decent information as to what we can be expecting. 1080 Ti like performance, probably for the same price. We don't have the exact information on that. And then as far as release date, I'm going to be anticipating that we will see it at Computex. If it's showing up in Tech Power Up, that means that we can't be too far away from it. So then NVIDIA showing it off at Computex, having every single freaking display and stand powered by the GTX 1180 as a marketing scheme like they did with the 1070 2 years ago, that would be pretty good. And then we could see like an actual mainstream launch in somewhere in the July timeframe, which is something that I've been saying for a couple of months, because that's what it seems, not the April timeframe that I quoted earlier, because ooh, holy crap, it's May 7th. Anyways, that's all the news I have for you guys today. I want this to be a conversation. Please let me know, what do you think of the 1180? Are you super disappointed? I'm sure a lot of you are. I'm sure a lot of you were hoping for a lot better performance. Doesn't look like the Volta or Turing architecture is really going to give that to us right now. We might want to hold off for the GTX 1180 and for 1180 Ti. And for those of you who are going to be asking about the 1160s and 1150s and all of those upcoming SKUs, keep holding on. We're going to be talking about those in upcoming videos in a few days, so be sure to hit the subscribe button like I mentioned earlier if you want to stay up to date and get notified for that. Also be sure to smash the like button if you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to chat with us down in the comments or in the community Discord. I'd love to talk to you there. If you're looking to buy anything, graphics card systems or anything like that for your PC, you can use our affiliate codes, which are in the video description. Gives us a small kickback, helps the channel out a lot. Make sure that we continue to do things while I am on the road. Anyways, I'm Brett with the UFD Tech channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Cheers.